Hello, it's Mike here at Game From Scratch, and today we're going to take a quick look at the VR functionality that was just added to Godot 3. It kind of got lost in the mix of all the other announcements that happened with Godot 3, and it's actually really cool the implementation they have there, and especially so because it's actually implemented for SteamVR and OpenHMD, and my device is one of the Microsoft series of ones, which are kind of compatible with SteamVR, but amazingly enough, it just works. So I'm using a Samsung Odyssey HMD, and it works flawlessly with Godot, which I found, again, really shocking how magically and easily it worked. And on top of that, getting up and running with a headset is staggeringly easy. Again, I was kind of shocked at how good the experience was. So that's exactly what we're going to look at today. Now, the person behind all of this technology is Bastiaan Olij. I probably mangled that name a bit, but his GitHub page is the home to the VR implementation. Now, it was implemented using GD Native. And as you're going to see in a second, with the way that Godot 3 deploys things now, this is really going to be easy to get up and going. But if you want to build it yourself, get it up to date, the build is available here, and if you are compiling it yourself, Bastiaan tells me that the Linux version is there. It's just awaiting testing. So if you are on Linux and you want to test things out, do try and build it from source, see how that goes. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right into Godot. Obviously, we need to fire up Godot. I'm using the new release of Godot 3. I'm going to go ahead and just create a new project. We'll call this VR2 because I've already made VR1. Make that in my temp directory, create that folder, and off to the races. So this is a very, very, very simple, straightforward process. So there's a couple of caveats, of course, there always are. The root of our scene needs to be a VR origin. No, the root doesn't have to be, but the root of our VR stuff needs to be a VR origin class. Now, if you come into the node list, you go and search for AR VR, you'll find the various different classes that are required to implement VR in Godot. And again, the root class, a lot of them are going to ask for this VR origin. So I'm just going to make that my root node. What's your issue? Okay, and it needs a child node. That's fine. Yeah, camera child node. First off, okay, so we're going to save up our scene. And we'll go ahead and run it. This isn't going to do much. I'm just getting the configuration stuff out of the way. And done. Not really much going on with said scene. There's no camera, there's no nothing else, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's actually, you know what, we can go ahead and do that now. So let's go ahead and create a camera, which is the requirement. So we have a camera in VR. We'll move this guy over a bit. And just so that we have something to look at, let's go ahead and just create a normal mesh. So mesh instance, like so. And we'll make that just a cube. So, let's move it out of the way a little bit. So now if we go ahead and run our game, slightly more exciting, we have a cube in space. Perfect. So there you go. So now what we're going to do is go and VRify this guy. And to do this, what we're going to do is basically import it. So go on down here to your, or up here to your asset library right there. And we are searching for VR. Ooh. We're back. Okay. So search for VR. There it is. So it's the Open VR module. You just want to go ahead, grab that guy, and install it. And you want to basically bring in everything here. So this is all the various different DLLs, shared objects, etc. required to support the GD Native extension. Let's go ahead and install that sucker. And you're going to see there's actually some scenes in there that are going to be vitally useful to us in a second. But we are pretty much rocking and rolling and ready to go in VR. So you'll see in the background, I have this application running. This is because it's Windows Mixed Reality. So sadly, I need to have their host application available. But when I go ahead and run this, it's going to try and trigger off the SteamVR to hook up to this guy. But we're going to do a little bit of code first. So let's go back to our origin here, and we'll add a script to this guy. So just attach a script, and we're fine. And we just need to basically fire up the VR server. So this is going to require some code in our ready call here. And first var ARVR interface equals ARVR server dot find dot interface. Find underscore interface. My bad. And what we were looking for, do it by string. In this case, we're using OpenVR. The other options are Cardboard, which is really basic VR, and OpenHMD. And I'm not sure of the status of that one. I don't really care because the only one that works for me is OpenVR. So I'm going to stick with OpenVR. So basically, that's going to try and find the interface. if we did in fact find it, like so, and arvr.interface dot arvr underscore interface dot initialize. So basically we want to go ahead and run it and make sure that it ran fine. And then assuming we did, we just go ahead and do a get viewport, so our window, and we hook it up to VR. So, and then there's another one here. This is a bit of a workaround. This is SteamVR does not like the way that HDR is done in Godot, so we basically have to turn that off. So once again, get viewport, and then HDR equals false. So in theory, that is all the code we need to be VRified. Go ahead and run this. And now you will see, I've got my headset in my hand, but you see we instantly got tracking going on, like so. Pretty cool stuff, pretty simple, pretty easy. That was really just a couple of lines of code, and we are in VR. Now where it gets even cooler is, now we want to go ahead and control our controller. So you can see right here, I have one controller active. I guess I should go turn the other one on. All right, so I should have two controllers. It should come online in a second. But we'll exit out of that guy. And now what we can do is actually go ahead and implement like basically implementations for how to handle controller tracking. And so I can come in here, I can go ahead and I'm going to instance a new scene. That's not what I want. Right click here, instance child scene, and you go into your add-ons folder that we imported before, Godot Open VR, scenes, and you'll see here we have a bunch of defaults. So we could actually do a first-person controller right off the hop, but all I really care about is my VR controllers. So I'm going to bring in and basically implement a VR controller. So you can see here, it's basically consists of a mesh and the controller. This is going to show us in 3D the actual mesh's display. Let's go on back to my scene for a second. So now that we have that controller, I actually want to go ahead and actually add some logic to it as well. So we're just going to, with that guy selected, then once again, instance child scene, and we're going to give it the functionality of pointing. So we have our initial controller. We can change the ID over here. We can turn rumble off and on. And that's basically about it on that guy. So now if I go ahead and back to the run, let me put my headset actually balanced on my head, like so. So you can see I am looking around. And now if I find my controllers, there you go. So here you can see I have 3D tracking and pointer implementation of this controller. And you know, you've got the basics of VR already done. You got your controller support, you got your head tracking already, your camera works by default, and the rest of it now, really, in most ways, is just a normal 3D game like you would make any other way, you know, using Godot normally. It's really impressive how easy it is to actually get virtual reality up and running inside of the Godot 3 engine. And you know, if you are looking for an alternative to the HTC Vive, which can be quite expensive, there is the whole series of Microsoft VR headsets. And like I said, this is what I'm using now, and I like this guy because I don't have to have any cubes around my room to calibrate it. It does inside-out tracking, which has its advantages and disadvantages. I may do a separate video about that otherwise, but they can be had for a couple $100. I think the lowest, cheapest ones are $299. So if you are interested in getting into VR development, Godot is now a great option, and it's very affordable to do so. And as you just saw from today, it's also very, very easy. So really, you know, kudos to Bastiaan on that one. He did an excellent job with this library. I'll link to his channel down below and to his GitHub page, and heck, to his Twitter as well. He's kind of an unsung hero, doesn't get as much attention probably as he should. Heck of a contribution to the Godot 3 team. Yeah, this is really impressive. So that's VR and Godot. Hope you found that useful. I will see you all later. Goodbye.